This is the Roller Coaster Podcast, and I'm your host, Lucy Q. Life is a wild ride. It has twists and turns. It's scary, exciting, and downright fun. So throw your head back, arms in the air, and come along with me for the ride.
Life is like a roller coaster, baby, baby. I wanna ride.
Do you hear that whisper? That little voice that tugs at your heart, telling you to start living your best life. If that sounds like you, then now is the time to join Nectar Growth. It's the only place online where you can connect with and learn from great coaches with different areas of expertise. Why live another day not believing that you're enough, not seeing all that is possible for you? Why live another day dimming your own light? Nectar is the perfect place for you to discover the real you and uncover who you're meant to be. Life is a journey that we are not meant to walk alone. Nectar gives you a nurturing and supportive community to walk with you on your journey. Start living your best life and see what is truly possible. Come join us at nectargrowth.com. You know you're worth it.
Ride.
I've shared my story with you about being in a dark place, lost, and not knowing where to get help or even how to ask. I thought that I was the only one, and I felt ashamed. That's one of the reasons why I started the roller coaster. My hope is that when someone finds themselves in a dark place, they can find comfort in knowing that they're not alone and provide resources so they can find the help that they need. Joining me today is Nate Rifkin, author of The Standing Meditation, to share how he went from suicidal to happy and successful. Nate is paying it forward, helping others get real results from a spiritual and meditation practice. Welcome to the roller coaster, Nate.
Oh, thank you. I'm honored to be here. I'm loving to be a part of this.
Thank you. So it sounds like we went through something similar, being in that dark place. Can we maybe start off with you sharing where you were, how you got there, and then how life unfolded from that point?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in a very emotionally shut down, cold-hearted family. Parents divorced when I was 7 years old. And I was an angry, depressed kid growing up. And it got worse as I got older because, as I got into my teenage years, I was still very, very socially awkward, and it just got worse and worse. Hardly made any friends, never went on any dates. Prom night, stayed home and watched TV. Then I went to college, and I thought, hey, new beginning because I'm in a new environment, right? Well, that was wrong. I turned out to be very incorrect because I was surrounded by new people, but I still that same depressed, awkward, angry kid. I was technically an adult at this point, but I still felt like a child inside. So after 3 semesters, I actually dropped out of college. I said goodbye to nobody. The only person who probably knew I was gone was my roommate, because he probably walked back in and saw half the stuff cleared out and realized I was missing. And that was it. My one hope was that I could make a go of being some kind of a business owner and entrepreneur. So actually, I started an online-based business. This is back in like 2006. And I started studying like self-educating, like marketing, advertising, copywriting, all kinds, everything it would take to like start a business. And I got really into self-help. I mean, all kinds of books, courses, and like gurus on like visualization, goal setting. I even made like a vision board. I like glue sticked the thing, put it on my wall. And on a rare occasion, someone came over, I like took it down and hid it because I was so embarrassed about the thing. And at this point, I was living in Boulder, Colorado. I decided to move there. And I was on my own, just living in a tiny little condo by myself. And I was using my own credit cards to finance the business. So I had some hit or miss success, but the misses started to get more and more, and I started to get like deeper into debt, like slowly, like this credit card would max out, then this credit card would max out, the bill would come in the mail, and I just put on the floor and throw some other mail on top of it. So, which is a terrible financial strategy. Did not work. And I was scared. I got really, really scared because the more I got into debt, the more I wondered how's the floor going to drop out from under me? Am I going to get thrown out of my condo? Like, how am I going to keep paying for rent and food? And I was also that same depressed, lonely kid on the inside. And to me, the loneliness was worse than any of the financial challenges. I mean, some days I got so depressed I'd end up curled on the floor in a fetal position, just silently crying. And I didn't know what to do because all the self-help I was trying didn't work. Something was missing. Like I never achieved a single goal I set. Like I ended up cramming that vision board in the recycling bin and throwing it out. And at my worst, I got so fed up and realized, well, not realized, but I thought at the time, I thought none of this is working. There's no point. So I started drinking alcohol every morning. I drink like a couple shots of vodka, top it off with like an energy drink. That was my breakfast. And I had one later in the afternoon usually. So that was like my lowest point. I really, honestly, before I got into the drinking, because that was like my coping mechanism, I thought a lot about killing myself, just the looping self-hating thoughts. So but I was very fortunate that I had a teacher from the business world, and he was into a spiritual tradition called Taoism. Didn't know what it was, but he started teaching meditations from Taoism. And I'd tried meditation before. Mostly I just ended up feeling a bit hazy, almost like I wanted to go to sleep. But something about it spoke to me. It was especially a meditation done in a standing position, because it was like, oh, this is cool. I'm combining like the physical also with like my mind. And later, as I figure out, it was actually like a spiritual thing. So I started practicing every day in the morning, and I just started with like a minute, just like 60 seconds. But I promised myself, I'm like, I'll add 5 seconds a day. And I did. I kept my word. I'd get up, brush my teeth, do my thing, and I'd do this meditation, and I still drank the vodka like afterwards. I still went and did it. But I noticed I start to feel better. I wasn't changing anything else in my life, but I just start to like just feel better and more in my body. And I started to feel a buzz and started to catch up to the buzz I felt from drinking alcohol. So eventually, one day, I felt good enough for meditating that when I took that drink of vodka, I didn't feel any better. I just felt more drunk. So I'm like, this is interesting. I wonder if this trend's going to continue. Well, within a day or two, I was meditating, feeling good. I took the drink, and I actually felt worse. It brought me down. And I was like, I'll just stop drinking. So I put the bottle of vodka away in the freezer, never touched it again until I poured it down the sink. And it's not like I like cut alcohol out of my life entirely, but it was a sign to me that something was going on that was working at such a deep level that I didn't need it as a coping mechanism in the morning. So I kept going, and I'd run into people I knew who said, Nate, something's different about you. You're like looking more happy or confident. And they didn't know what I was up to. So I'm like, this is cool. This is like working beyond just in my head. And I remember I kept going, and I got to like 10 minutes a day. And there's one evening, it was springtime. It was around midnight, and I was still awake. And I still remember like the crickets were chirping outside. And I did this meditation, and I started to feel my eyes are closed, but I was feeling like my body was just like glowing like the sun. And I felt so good that I remember sitting down afterwards on my food, because my futon's right behind me. So I sat down. I'm like, nothing like this has ever worked out for me before. Like nothing has actually been worth my while, been worth my effort. So I'm going to dedicate my life to this. And that was about 12 years ago, something like that. And I kept my promise, and I kept on training and learning and exploring about this like modality that I learned. And now my mission is to tell others about it, because it can really help just like remove the emotional gunk from your life, so you can really live the life you want to live.
There were so many things there that I can absolutely relate to. but I want to talk specifically about that component where you talked about that self-education, how you were learning about self-help, but something was missing. And I went through the exact same thing. And in fact, I beat myself up for it because, and I relate it back to watching The Secret and then starting to follow, the coaches and speakers were on that. And, it just kind of snowballed from there. But I still hit a deep, dark crisis point. And I beat myself up because it's like, well, why is it that you've learned all of these great things, but you can't make it work for yourself? What? And I'm like, what are you missing? So now that you can look back, what do you think was that missing piece?
Oh, that's a great question. The missing piece for me was that everything I was doing, self-help wise, it was all centered on those surface level thoughts. And remember, my big problem was like looping self-hating thoughts. So when I started visualizing, and started like trying to work with like keeping positive thinking and all that, I was just dumping more energy into this process I was already going. And you know how it is, you get into it and you get focused, you get dedicated, but then if you start slipping into like a state where you start beating yourself up, and then you start beating yourself up for beating yourself up, it's just like it just doesn't stop. Yeah.
It makes no sense, but it's exactly exactly where I was, even down to having the vision board and hiding it because you're embarrassed. I didn't want my husband to see it.
Yeah.
And it was I'm going to say a poor attempt because it was still, clouded in limited beliefs.
Yeah. And with mine, a lot of it, and I think with a lot of people, it can often be based on, like the best way I could say is like, it's based on cravings of like this. So I'm not happy right now. Like, I mean, I am, but I'm just saying, like the person might say, I'm not happy right now, but if I get this, I swear I'll be happy. I need this to be happy. And with everything I've learned about spirituality since then, in the past, like, let's say 12 to even 15 years, because I was always trying to figure it out. That's the exact sort of thing where there's going to be a block put in your way, because it's like, okay, whoa, first you need to figure out that you can be happy first. And we're going to teach you so thoroughly that we're going to make sure you don't get what you want until you start working on yourself first and being happy in the moment.
Isn't the universe fantastic that way?
Yeah.
Because we do, as human beings, we hinge happiness on that if then that sort of scenario. Everything's, I'll be happy when I get this promotion, when I make this much money, when I get this car, when I get this house. And to be able to step back, and as simple as it sounds, to be happy and grateful exactly where you are. Those are, for me, it was just those, something changed, and it was those first steps of crawling out of what I called my shit barrel.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. And I get it, because I've been there. So I know it's like, yeah, be happy now. It's like, I went, by the way, I've been through a bankruptcy. So I get it when it's just like, no, there are very practical problems here. Don't tell me to like be happy in the moment. I got a credit card bill and I literally only have this much in the bank. I've been there.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, it's not gonna make it rain. You're not gonna win the lot. Well, you might win the lottery overnight, but I did not.
No,
Yeah.
Didn't happen for me either.
Yeah. But it's necessary. It is the key to keep returning back, even if you have to do it a million times in your mind, returning back to that centered place where it's just like, okay, at least I'm gonna be grateful that I'm growing through this, and I'll have a cool story later. At least I can do that, because when you get into that space on a really practical level, you will be shifting your perspective. Like, you will be able to see opportunities, and you'll be able to see where you're self-sabotaging in ways that you couldn't when you're in that desperate needing place. And I know that because I spent years in that desperate needing place and working very hard. But it wasn't a matter of adding more hustle. It was a matter of more reflection. And it's tricky, but it's one of those things if you look back on your life, some of the biggest issues that came up where you were just blindsided by life, you look back and it's like, oh, okay, the way I got through that was by growing on the inside. And it was through that beat coming from the center place and reflecting on myself. And it doesn't happen as quick as you want, but that's how I see it now. It's like you talk about The Secret. It's just my opinion, but from experience, what I've learned is it's more about cleaning up your act on the inside, and then you can attract the circumstances to help you grow so you can get what fulfills you. Because there's a lot of stuff my ego craved that I've never gotten. That's okay. But there's a lot of stuff that I have miraculously gotten. It's been amazing. And I'm so grateful for it. And it's always stuff that's like, oh, this is stuff that actually, it's not just cool and awesome and abundant. It's also fulfilling. And it required me to go through the meat grinder of life to change in order to be the person that could actually receive that.
Yeah. And, you touched on, it's not necessarily those high ticket items or the monetary valued things that we're searching for. It's it's the simple things that can bring us so much joy and excitement in life. And for me, it's being able to connect with so many different people. I can spend 2 or 3 hours in an evening chatting with people like yourself. And I go downstairs and I just want to say my heart is so full.
Cool.
And it's something, whereas before, yeah, you'd be looking for, the house, the vacation, the this, the that. But the simpler my life has gotten, the more abundant it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. When I was in my late 20s and I got to a point in my finances, it was after I went bankrupt, where I got I looked for the cheapest place I could find. This shows how long ago it was, because the rent was $525 a month. It'd be tough to find that today. Where I was living anyway. And I got a job spinning a sign on a street corner for 10. I started at $10 an hour. They gave me a few raises, so I got up to like 10.75 or something. I was rolling in it. But I was the happiest I'd ever been. And I slept the best I'd ever slept, because for the first time in my life, I was earning more than I was spending. Because I cut out all extraneous expenses. So yeah, because what I realized is when you construct like a vision of what you want in life, you have to think really hard about what is it actually going to feel like, both the good and the bad, if I get what I want. Because oftentimes, and this has happened to a lot of people, it's probably happened to everyone, you might save and save and save and go on that dream vacation and end up in an argument with your spouse.
Yep.
And it's just like, oh my God, this whole we're paying for this whole experience. And I've kind of been there.
Yeah, been there, done that.
And it's not to say like vacations are bad and stuff, but it's always about like what's going on the inside, because all of a sudden you can turn that around and be like, oh, it is all about my internal state. So even if I can't afford a vacation right now, if it's all about my internal state, then shoot, I may have an excuse not to go on a vacation, or a reason, but I don't have an excuse not to seek my own happiness right here and now. Because I never went on vacations when I was in that condo. I would just stay home, and I would just enjoy the quiet solitude. And lo and behold, I moved out of that condo. I'm in a house now, but I still do the same thing. What do you know?
Yeah. So what is it that you feel that Taoism and that standing meditation, what is it that you think, what are the elements that helped you in your healing?
It got me out of my head, and it got me into the energy of my body. And It's my belief that there's a certain modality of meditation out there that's going to resonate with everyone, and it's going to be different. Um, and what makes it resonate, what makes it helpful, is that it gets you out of your head. It gets you off the hamster wheel of your thoughts, and it gets you into the feeling of being settled in your body. Because when you get into that quiet, settled place, that's when you can really start finally processing and healing old emotional wounding in a way that thinking and thinking and thinking about it can't touch. And the cool part is, when that happens, your life will start to improve in kind of seemingly random ways, because you're improving in seemingly random ways that are beneath your conscious awareness. Because you might just, a day after you meditate, you'll be like, okay, whatever, I meditated. A week later, it's like, well, I guess it's kind of cool. A month, it's like, all right, well, maybe it's doing something. But a year or two later, that's when you're going to be like, wait a minute, I'm looking back on my life, things started working out. Like, I met this new person, they're pretty cool. And some of my less like, some of my more toxic associates started falling away, and less healthy people started falling away. And yeah, gosh, I used to always have that bad habit. I just don't do it anymore. I don't like to do it. That's what that sort of thing can do when you reach that still point.
And, for me, I don't meditate every day. I meditate, 10 minutes most days, let's say. Or, if I'm not actually, say, formally meditating, I usually find some quiet, reflective time.
Yeah.
So it's still a form of meditation. But for me, I found that you're able to create a shift where, instead of seeing life happening to you, you become the observer. And by being the observer, that's when you get to unpack the emotions, the trauma, the crap that you have built up inside.
Yeah, that's beautifully put. And I always like to say, it's like, look, every morning, everyone has like a self-care routine of some sort. Like, we all will take a shower, brush our teeth, we'll do something. Meditating or a practice like that, like the self-reflection, getting off in a place where you can become that observer, I think it's akin to that. It's like the mental, spiritual version of that. So just think about what would happen in your life if you didn't regularly do that versus you did, and just map out the next, and forget about what the next few months will look like. What would the next 10 or 15 years look like? Especially considering one little decision can make the difference, can change your life, especially if it's a decision that is affected by your feeling of self-love and self-worth and clarity. It in a good way, it makes me like paranoid. It's like a positive paranoia. It's like, whoa, yeah, I gotta take this seriously, because the stakes are high. I mean, the stakes is your life and your happiness, and what could be higher than that? And if you don't think that makes it a high stakes, then definitely do this. so you can start, loving yourself more.
And that's the thing, is that the days, the weeks, the months, the years, they're going to pass anyways.
Yeah.
So the choice comes down to, how do we want them to pass? Do we want them to just pass us by? Or do we want to be, an active participator in those days, those hours?
Yeah. And I love that, because it kind of goes back to what you mentioned earlier about not being happy until, because that's a great way to throw years away.
Yeah.
Whew.
Waiting to be happy.
Yeah.
When you say it like that, it sounds insane. I'm not going to be happy right now, but I will when.
Yeah, that was my 20s, most of my 20s. I had to go through it so I could talk to you about
Nate,
this.
You're a quicker learner. I joke all the time. I say I'm a slow learner, because I was 44, 45 when I started to figure this stuff out. So yeah, beat me on that one. And it just goes to show, it doesn't make a difference how old you are or where you are in life. you have the choice to wake up tomorrow and create a completely different day.
Yeah, exactly. And if you do that, I think that's a life well served right there, for sure.
Absolutely. Now, as we wrap up, Nate, do you have any final thoughts or words of wisdom that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Yeah. I Here's my final thought. And I paused because I'm like, wait, this isn't a thought. So it's kind of cool. When in doubt, I always just like to stop and breathe, make sure I'm breathing into my belly. And if I have to, I'll put one hand on my belly, like my left hand, and I'll put my right hand on my chest. And when I breathe, I make sure my left hand rises and falls with my breath, and my left hand, and that my hand on my chest does not. So you're actually getting real-time feedback that you're breathing into your belly. So make sure your belly rises and falls. And when you do this, it's doing so many wonderful things. You're going to get into that observer state. You're going to lower your stress. You're going to optimize your hormones, and you're going to signal to your central nervous system to relax, and your perceptions will increase. And you'll be engaging in a practice that helps you heal old emotional wounding. And best of all, you're taking a break from the looping loops of your thoughts. So that's the final thought, is an exercise in getting towards non-thinking.
That's great advice. And Nate, where is the best place for people to connect with you and grab a copy of your book?
Oh, thank you. Best way is the website, thestandingmeditation.com. And right now that just goes straight to Amazon. And that's the best way.
Perfect. To connect with Nate, make sure you check out the show notes. I will have all of the links in there. And Nate, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your story today.
Oh, it was an absolute honor. I loved our exchange. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Roller Coaster Podcast. Want to chat or share your ideas about today's show? Pop me an email at hello@therollercoasterpodcast.com. Don't forget to connect with me on Facebook and Instagram at The Roller Coaster Podcast. Our theme song, Roller Coaster, was performed by The Lucky Setback. Audio editing by the one and only Jeff Quigley of Quigley Creator.
Life is like a roller coaster, baby, baby. I wanna ride, 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 ride. Life is like a roller coaster, baby, baby.